You libertarians out there, I just want to comment on the utter and complete failures of laissez-faire economics and free market economics and libertarianism. And it's really it angers me the degree to which people hold on to these completely demolished and debunked ideologies. So, the last 4 years, haven't those been proof enough that deregulation and free markets and unbridled, unchecked markets just don't work? Haven't those been prime examples of the failures of laissez-faire and free market economics? I do think so. And this whole radical agenda that all of these brilliant economists, from Paul Krugman to Naomi Klein, of course, have identified, this radical agenda that's out there, that's basically about reducing the degree of government involvement and giving more and more power to private people, to the market, and reducing the size and scope of government intervention, has of course led to a state of complete disarray that we're in right now. I mean, let's just look at what's been going on over the past decades, or the past 100 years, with this radical free market agenda, right? When around 1930, government involvement was around 35% in the economy. Now it's at only 7 or 8% or so, right? So, um, public schooling was abolished in 1870, right? We now have a completely privatized school system with no government involvement whatsoever, and we have a public schooling system in complete disarray, with children uh, being bored to death in the classroom, with metal detectors at the doors, with reporters not even being able to go inside most of the schools because there's such a frenzy of privatized free market radicalism going on in there. So come on, I mean, at some point, I think it's time for libertarians to admit a failure, and listen to us Republicans or Democrats, the reasonable people, basically, right, who haven't been given a shot at running the show for long enough now, in my opinion. What were you thinking when you decided to end the war on drugs, dear libertarians? Right? What was that all about? Now, today we have people who can legally smoke marijuana wherever they want. We have people getting high on drugs left and right, just because there are no laws uh, uh, to enforce proper behavior. When it comes to using drugs and uh, taking hard drugs, people are resorting to more and more dangerous drugs, such as methamphetamine and all these things, because that's what people naturally do, right? They always try to do more and more dangerous things, as long as they're not checked by government intervention. Um, the size of the Federal Register has declined by 3,000%. So without, yes, more, but it has declined by more than 100%, believe it or not. So without any of these rules in place, it's of course totally expectable that you'll have an economy in disarray at some point. Um, the federal income tax in the early 20th century was, of course, at the top level at 35% or so. Now it's at 0%. What were you thinking when you did that, dear libertarians? The people are not paying taxes anymore. How is the government supposed to fund itself? It's now on the brink of bankruptcy because there's no taxation in place anymore. And this whole idea of cutting debt and cutting deficits, we need the government to run deficits so as to stimulate the economy. I mean, hello, this is basic Keynesian economics, right? I mean, I would recommend you go uh, uh, to to the New York Times and read up on your Paul Krugman, maybe, or buy Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine, a brilliant book where she completely accurately identified that this free market agenda has just been running rampant in politics for the past decades. Um, what were you thinking when you decided that the government should not be involved in the healthcare system, right? Is it so you want people to individually decide who can buy and who cannot buy, who can produce and who cannot produce prescription drugs? The government has now completely withdrawn from this market, right? When you abolished the FDA in the 20th century, what were you thinking? There are no rules in place anymore. People can charge whatever they want for drugs, and it's just a complete disaster. And healthcare costs are going up and up, and of course insurance costs are going up because there's absolutely no government involvement in the healthcare system right now. Um, you refused, stubbornly refused, dear libertarians, who you've been in power and running the show for the past decades. You have refused to help out the pharmaceutical companies who were ailing. You could have easily helped them out by establishing regulatory boards, staffing them with all their executives. Why did you not do that? Well, because you just think that everybody should fend for themselves, and I don't think that's right. Um, I mean, what were you thinking when you abolished the central banking system in 1913? What were you thinking when you abolished the Federal Reserve in 1913? What has happened since then? Since we have a free market, we now have a completely free market, unregulated market in the realm of currencies. We have a gold standard out of all things, right? Uh, uh, we have this gold, this crazy relic from the Gilded Age. Um, we now have a complete state of disarray and unbridled speculation because there's no government involvement whatsoever in the realm of currencies. What were you thinking? And how much more evidence, dear libertarians, do you need that your ideas are just not working? And I mean, what about those who don't earn enough money? Why did you refuse to, in all U.S. states, why did you refuse to enact a minimum wage? Why did you refuse to have a federal minimum wage? Because there's no minimum wage, we now have unemployment and poverty all over the country. And what were you thinking when you abolished the Great Society programs in the 60s, right? Because when the Great Society programs were first put in place, the poverty rate started declining right away. And then when you ended the Great Society programs, when you ended the welfare state, the poverty rate stopped declining and actually has increased since then. So, hello, I mean, which part of this are you guys not getting, really? Come on. And look at. I mean, what is it that you don't understand when we say Americans should get work first before immigrants, right? You constantly refuse to deport immigrants to come to this country. It's now a free for all. Everybody can come to the U.S. and work from wherever they want to, and that's just not right. That's not. That's not good. It leads to again to a state of complete disarray on the labor market in the economy, and that's why we have so much unemployment now, right? Um, what were you thinking, dear libertarians in power, who you have been running the show for so long? What were you thinking when you decided um, to leave all the countries that we have been so heroically and so consistently protecting and supporting? What were you thinking when um, when you close down all those military bases all around the world? All those 700 military bases are now closed down, have been closed down step by step and consistently over the past decades, right? What has happened? Now that there are no troops whatsoever in the Middle East, no U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia, no U.S. troops in any other countries, that as soon as that started happening, we had terrorists attacking the United States. Of course, right? Because as soon as we leave them alone, they're going to attack us. It makes perfect sense because they'll see that we're weak, they hate our freedoms, so they're just going to fly planes into buildings and go berserk. So in every realm, my dear libertarians, have your recommendations been applied and failed miserably? Um, what is it uh, that you don't get when it comes to agricultural and farm subsidies, right? There is a need, a very specific need for certain agricultural conglomerates to get subsidies, and the government should steer them in the right direction by dishing out subsidies from taxes that they collect, and in order to make sure that we get a healthy food supply. And look at what happened now. We now have this obesity this obesity epidemic all around the country. We have people just using high fructose corn syrup in almost every single processed food item that you can get in the grocery store because there are no subsidies whatsoever, right? So of course, when you don't subsidize something, then people will use more of it, right? Because you're not subsidizing corn, people use an enormous amount of corn in every step of the food chain, um, and the food processing chain, and cattle are being fed by corn because there are no subsidies. So libertarians, you need to admit that we need farm subsidies and all this good stuff. Um, I mean, again, it's funny because libertarians claim they are so free market and they understand the market so well. Well, how about helping out the stock market a little bit, right? We today we don't have enough money sloshing around in the stock market because you have refused to enact a taxation regime that would allow the government to incentivize people to put money in the stock market. It's a brilliant scheme. You just tell them you can either put your money in the stock market until you retire, or we're gonna tax that money away from you. It's a I mean it's what's wrong with keeping a little bit more money in the stock market, right? Because you didn't do that. Now the stock market doesn't have enough money sloshing around. There's not enough speculation going on, but speculation is what keeps things going, right? So I mean, libertarians, what were you thinking when you left the stock market to its own devices? Um, Let me see. I wrote down some more things here. Let's see if I have any other things. Um, yeah, no, that pretty much sums it up. So overall, I mean, the libertarians, you have refused to intervene every step of the way throughout the past decades. Your deregulation agenda has been a complete failure, and it's time to admit failure. It's time to admit that we need a stronger government. We need more intervention. We need to get things back on track. We need regulation. We need more taxation. We need more government deficits to boost the economy. And that's all I wanted to say. And you can let me know what you think. Thanks for listening.